Hey, this is Workbench with Workbench Quagmire. Welcome back to day 60. Day 60, I believe. If not, it'll be on the screen of our free code camp, Python certification in 100-ish days. We're going to cover the last theory section here on inheritance and polymorphism, and then we'll have an action-packed workshop or something coming up next. So let's get started. What is name mangling and how does it work? In a previous lesson, you learned about prefixing attributes with a single underscore and a double underscore. To remind you of the difference between them, a single underscore is a convention that means the attribute is meant for internal use in the class and should not be directly accessed from outside the class. Double underscores, on the other hand, prevent the attribute from being accessed directly from outside the class. Here's an example that demonstrates how the two work. So we have our example class, we have our init method, we have an internal attribute, and then we have a private attribute. And so we create an object from our example class, and then when we call object.internal, it returns I can be accessed from outside the class, but I should not. And then the other one creates an attribute error because example object has no attribute, private. So basically Python hides it. Prefixing the attribute with a double underscore triggers Python's name mangling process, in which Python internally renames the attribute by adding an underscore and the name and the class name as a prefix, turning underscore attribute into underscore class name double underscore attribute. To see this in action, you can create an instance of the class and use the dict special attribute of the instance, which is a dictionary containing the object's attributes. So here we have our example, same thing. Here, example class. And then we assign our values for internal and private. And then when we call example dict, it will return internal. And here's what it was talking about, the example private. As you can see, the private attribute is stored as example private. This means you can still access the attribute outside the class this way. So if we create our example class, we assign it values, we create two instances with different values, and then we can actually call the example private, and it will actually return what we have assigned it. So why does Python do name mangling? The main purpose of name mangling is to prevent accidental attribute and method overriding when you use inheritance. Here's an example that makes that clear. So we have a parent as init method with a private data attribute. We have a child that basically says, give me the parent init method, and then I am going to override the data child. And when we create the child and we print the dict, we get the parent underscore data, and then we get the child underscore data. So we don't override the parent double underscore data. It's just added in addition. So you can see that both parent class and the child class that inherit from it have their separate class data attributes. This is made possible by name mangling. Otherwise, child would have overwritten the parent data by accident. Here's what would have happened without allowing Python to do the name mangling. That is, if you don't prefix the attributes in both classes with double underscore. So here we just have a data attribute and a data attribute. And so when we print the dict, we only get the child data attribute. So which should you use to prefix attributes between single underscore and double underscore? It depends. If an attribute is only meant for internal use within the class, stick with a single underscore. But if you're working with a class that will be inherited, you should use double underscores so that the attribute from the parent doesn't get overridden. So what is the difference between a single underscore and double underscore? are treated the same. They are not. A single underscore makes attributes completely private, while a double underscore makes them protected. That is not true. A single underscore prevents direct access, while a double underscore allows direct access. It's not true. A single underscore is just a convention, while a double underscore triggers name mangling. I think that one's correct. What is name mangling? The process in which Python converts all attributes into methods for easier access? Nope. A process in which Python deletes attributes? No, we know that's not true. A process in which Python changes double underscore attribute into class name attribute to avoid accidental overwriting in subclasses? I think that's true. A process in which Python encrypts data, private data? Nope. I think it's option 3. And what happens when you don't prefix attributes in a parent and child classes with double underscore? Both classes keep their own separate copies of the attribute without interfering with each other. That's not true. The child class completely overrides the parent class attribute, and the parent's attribute data is lost. I think that's true. Parent class attributes become read-only. No. Python raises an error because attributes must always be prefixed, but that's not true. So I think it's option 2. See how we did? We're done. All right, that's it for our theory sections here on understanding inheritance and polymorphism. Next time, we will cover build a media catalog. This may be a 2-videoer. Then we have one more theory section. Build another workshop. That'll probably be 1 video, I'm guessing. And then we'll have a lab. Then we'll do our review. As always, we don't do the quizzes. And then we'll have another certification project. And as a reminder, we don't do the certification projects. I'll look at this certification project and I'll create some sort of similar project close to it so that the code can't be directly copied, but the ideas will be the same. And generally we throw in one extra thing. Last time we did unit tests. The first time we used modules before when the project didn't use modules. So we'll see what we do there. But thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.